I'm very interested to talk about the topic that has been given to me in context of our work in America. I want to remind you, brothers and sisters, that we as Muslims here in this part of the world have an agenda. As everyone has an agenda, we have an agenda too. Our agenda is the agenda of Allah and His Messenger Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. In everything that we do, we must keep in context of that. What are we trying to do as Muslims? And what we're not trying to do is to assimilate into the American way. We're not trying to be like other Americans. That's not our agenda. But our agenda is to give the Americans a guidance. You see, the Americans will always react against you if you try to force them to do something. See, you see, their freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and freedom of speech is almost a religion in itself. They pride themselves in that. That people be given the opportunity to express themselves. And because of that, Muslims now can do in this country what we cannot do in other countries. Let us be honest with each other. Now, let me talk to you now. We have a marvelous opportunity here in America to spread Islam, alhamdulillah. Allah has given us a marvelous opportunity. And I think that we ought to rise to the challenge. I feel so good that Allah has given us this magnificent opportunity, to spread Islam. And when you go to a prison, in this country, dominated by people in prison, do you know that there are 672,000 prisoners in America? 672,000 prisoners in America. And so right now, do you know, brothers and sisters, that if you have some Muslims in prison, then the government must allow you to send a chaplain in there that is paid for by the state. So now you have Muslim full-time chaplains in the prison system. You have Muslims full-time chaplains in the hospitals. Do you know that there are Christians and Jews who are paid money to go to the hospital to visit other Christians and Jews? And the same thing for Islam. Once you understand that, once you know, once you apply. And the same thing in the police force. Do you know that they have chaplains in the police force? Do you know they have chaplains in the army? That they will pay you a salary to service the Muslims in the army, the Muslims in the police, the patients in the hospitals, the prisoners in prison. So Muslims must begin to understand every segment of the society and get involved and to give the da'wah. Right now, the atmosphere, in my opinion, is ripe for da'wah in America. It is absolutely ripe. Now, brothers and sisters, the people in this society, they made the mistake, they got religion out of the state. But all of them will protect the religion of freedom, the religion of the press, and the religion of speech. And once the Muslims know that, they then know how to react and interact without assimilating, but interacting, and interact upon them, and to bring them into Allah's deen, inshaAllah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I'm glad you said we could make statements, because I didn't really have a question, but I wanted to make a comment on something that you said. And that was the point that you made about how Americans see freedom of religion. Many Americans themselves don't know that when the founders of the country were forming the country, they themselves fought and argued about the concept of freedom of religion.
Yes.
And they labored very hard to bring about the understanding that they had about freedom of religion. And this is very important in understanding Americans and how they see religion. So, alhamdulillah, I'm glad you made that point. And I also think that your point about the situation being right for dawah is very much true, very much.
Thank you very much. And I want to mention this too, brothers and sisters. I'm glad, thank you for that comment, brother. You see, the founding fathers of this country, one of the things that they did with the Constitution, they recognized their limitation as human beings. And therefore they put in a provision in the Constitution, which bore witness was man-made, they put a provision in that Constitution to make for revisions, amendments, or to repeal something. In fact, for your records, it's good to know this, that in 1919, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America made it illegal to manufacture, to sell, and to transport intoxicating drinks. 14 years later, in 1933, with the 21st Amendment of the United States of America, they repealed that, which means now it became legal again. That shows you a kind of flexibility. Know the issues, and then see the opportunity to bring Islam into those issues. This is to me, our great challenge that we have, to know the issues, to study the issues, and come from an Islamic perspective, and at the same time, inshallah, make converts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think Muslims ought to ask themselves the question, what period in history are we? How does now compare to the history of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is it similar to his earlier mission in Mecca, or is it more similar to the later mission in Medina? Where are we?
When we come to the United States, or to this nation here, we have to learn how the system works. We have to really get down to the detail of how can we exist in this society successfully, and how can we exist as a community, Muslims, among the Jews and the Christians effectively, and think ahead, and how can we really play this part of the solution that you're talking about, that this is the right time, it's the right situation, let's do it, you know, and there's nothing really to hide. As a Muslim, we are proud to be Muslim, and we have to really come and make our point politically, economically, and socially.
Muslims have been very reluctant to get into politics. For years I preached, we shouldn't get in politics, politics is corrupt, and so forth and so forth. I got a different thought altogether now. You mean to tell me that if a senator of the United States of America accepted Islam, or someone from the Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court accepted Islam, you don't think that that's good for us? Believe me, it's good for us. My thinking now, brothers and sisters, is that Muslims need to involve themselves in every aspect of the society that's halal. Now, we need to analyze whether it's halal or haram. This is the situation, but every aspect of the society that is halal, we ought to be involved. I would prefer to have a Muslim, a true Muslim, ahead of the United States Army than an enemy. I would rather have a president of the United States of America, or senator, or congressman, or a Supreme Court judge who's Muslim. What? And there are people, by the way, there are people in the Congress who are Jews, but you don't know it because they hide their faith. But they're there giving advice. Check it out. So the question is, are they going to be involved in politics passively or aggressively? Because when you don't say nothing, when they make these moves, you are involved in politics, but you're simply not saying anything. Now, some of you, I know that, getting involved in politics is not a substitute for jihad. It's not. I think Muslims should continue to develop in every aspect of the Islam. Our political involvement should not be individual. It should be collective. In other words, I do not believe that Muslims ought to get into politics because that's the American thing to do. No. I think Muslims ought to get into politics for our agenda, to bring about our collective agenda. And when the Muslim leadership gets together, and I think that's going to take time, we have to sensitize the people. I think that you should bring speakers in, both Muslims and non-Muslims, to give an idea of what history of America is about, how the political system works, how the economic system works. And then what we will do, brothers and sisters, is give them the Islamic politics, if you would. Give them the Islamic business ethics, see, economic principles. So I think that while we get together and study Quran and Sunnah, which we must, which is our foundation, we must also begin to learn about the economic system, how it works, so that we can move this nation in the places where it ought to be.